Delightful. Really delightful. I'm the Glob Glow Gabgala. I love books, and this basement is a true treasure trove. I am the Glob Glow Gabgalab, the schwabble double wabble gabble flibber blabber blab. I'm full of schwibble glibber kind. I am the yeast of thoughts and mind. Wabble dabble glibber glabber scribble schwab glab. Wabble dabble glibber glabber scribble schwab glab. Wabble dabble glibber glabber scribble schwab glab. Wabble dabble gam the glob glow gab galab. The schwabble double wabble gabble flibber blabber blab. I'm full of schwibble glibber kind. I am the yeast of thoughts and minds. Oh, splendid. Oh, splendid. Simply delicious. I'm full of schwibble glitter kind. I am the yeast of thoughts and mind. Wabble dabble glibber blabber scribble swat glab. Wabble dabble glibber blabber scribble swat glab. Wabble dabble glibber blabber scribble swat glab. Wabble dabble 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 dabble. Splendid. Simply delicious.
Welcome to Kanos Education. Today we have a special guest. Today we have Lainie Liberti. She's the founder and creator of the Transformative Mentoring for Teens program. Lainie's an author, a speaker, community leader, teen coach, adolescent behavior specialist, and alternative education advocate who helped spearhead the thriving worldschooling movement. There's so much more here about Lainie. She specializes in confidence coaching and working with youth. Co-facilitate a Project World School teen retreats as month-long immersion, like an immersive learning community to support self-directed teens from around the world. Over the last 8 years, Lainie has facilitated 20 plus international retreats for almost 100 teens, learning through cultural immersion, examining personal values, and exploring worldviews. Wow, this woman has talent, and we're so excited to be able to talk to her today and ask her some questions. And I did get some of your questions, so all those questions that I received have been submitted, and I will be reading from that list as well as my own. Yay! So here she comes. Okay, and here she is. So this is Lainie. Thank you. Welcome to Kanos Education. And I just wanted to ask you a few questions. I know you just got back from the conference in Acapulco. Maybe you could start by just telling me a little bit about that experience and how it was. Have you been there before, or was it your first time?
Yeah, it actually was a lot of fun. It was my very first time, but I've been watching it for years because normally I produce a conference in Mexico the same time. So I've always looked at it and said, oh my gosh, nope, can't do it. It's just too close to my family conference. So I've never gone. So this year, I met a lot of first time people that went too. And this year was really an interesting year to be there for the first time. And let me tell you, hugs. Oh, it was so amazing to be around people and, to be without masks.
Yeah.
Just like
beautiful. Wow.
That was lovely.
Did you end up going to the turtle event? I know I heard something about a turtle.
I traveled that day. So I traveled back. I do currently live in Mexico, but in a different part.
Okay, where in Mexico?
I'm in a town called Guanajuato.
Oh, okay. How far about is that from? Was it you have to drive or fly?
Well, I flew. So
you flew.
About a 4-hour drive from Mexico City. So I'm inland. I'm in the mountains.
Okay, very good. Okay. So yeah, jumping right in here, you do so much. I saw a little bit of a clip from what you were doing with the teens, and I heard you mentioning limiting beliefs, and it intrigued me because I've heard that term before, but I'd like to hear you talk more about it, and also what how did you come across that term? Is it something that I've heard it before, so it's not something you made up. It was definitely, but who inspired you? I guess the next question sort of ties in with that. So who inspired you? And let's talk about just limiting beliefs that teens have about themselves.
Well, it's not just teens that have limiting beliefs.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody has limiting beliefs. So, I've studied a lot about the brain.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an expert in anything. I'm self-directed. I'm a self-directed learner. I'm a parent of a self-directed learner as well. Some people call it unschooling,
Mm-hmm.
or boy, what else have I looked? Life learning. There's all these different terms for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't have a degree in anything like brain, biology, but I've studied a lot of it
Mm-hmm.
throughout the years, on my own path, and especially on my own healing path. And so, in essence, the thing to understand about the brain is that we've got a processing mind, which is our conscious mind, which is about 5%, 5 to 10% of all of the brain processing. And in the background, we've got the subconscious mind, and that
Mm-hmm.
also includes things like bodily, the brain telling the body to pump blood and to
Right.
breathe and stuff like that. And what the subconscious mind does is it takes in all of the information. There are different components within the brain that allow the information to actually, permeate as part of our thought process. Well,
Mm-hmm.
so imagine 90 to 95% of the input and processing goes into the subconscious brain. So there's a lot stored there, and the brain doesn't know the difference between truth and a belief, right? It believes what it believes based on the patterning that happened when we were from 0 to about 6. That's when the majority of our brain, processes how we make sense of the world around us.
Mm-hmm.
So take, for example, a young child who, sees maybe spilled coffee on the carpet, right? To us, to somebody who is thinking about that in a conscious processing perspective, sees just spilled coffee. But say that there's a traumatic event associated with that.
Right.
And if the traumatic event is maybe the child burnt themselves and coffee is not safe,
Mm-hmm.
and when people are not paying attention, this means this, means this, means this. Now, maybe it doesn't really mean all of those things, but that becomes pattern in as the truth. And as our brain develops, we tend to put deeper meanings to these belief systems. And most of the time, we don't even know they're there. Most of the time, there are traumatic based belief systems and cultural based belief
Mm-hmm.
systems. So many parents that are starting to take their kids out of school are dealing with the belief that, wait a minute, the only way to be educated is to go to school. And that belief is not their belief. It's a limiting belief that was given to them by culture, by society, and it's a common belief. And yes, we can change those things. So looking at limiting
I
beliefs,
struggle with that.
it's identifying what the foundational belief is, and it's usually stacked into place with an emotion, then
Okay.
another belief, then another emotion, and it's usually a good 3 to 4 layers deep. So the very
Mm-hmm.
first trigger that you're responding to in a irrational, could be irrational way,
Mm-hmm.
there's usually a fear or an emotion tied to that. If
Mm-hmm.
it's belief below that, then the fear or emotion tied to that. And it takes some time getting down to the base foundation of it, but that's
Yeah.
how we can identify what the limiting beliefs are, where they're holding us back, and also ways to reprogram it. So that's what I
Mm.
do. I help teens. I've helped myself. It's a powerful tool to have in your toolbox.
That's beautiful. I was wondering if you studied Eric Erickson or Howard Gardner. When I was in college, I studied them, and Piaget and everyone else, all those guys.
Yeah.
But I really identify with Gardner and the multiple intelligences. Something about that really speaks to my heart. And I went into education, and that was my field. I'm a paraprofessional now, but as I'm like shifting into this whole new homeschool movement, which is calling me like no tomorrow, like do it. There's so many limiting beliefs, like you were saying, like, well, I don't think I have the money, or everyone, people, what are people going to think, that kind of stuff. So I could definitely identify with that. So that would lead us to the next question. Limited beliefs. Another thing that came to mind as I was writing out some of these questions was just like the process of recovering from trauma or abuse. Well, that is trauma. Addictions, family addictions, maybe family abuse, whatever it may be, whatever the case may be. It could be something that's not even noticeable. It could have been something that happened that you would think was just a little thing. But I know in my inner healing work, I've noticed something a teacher said to me that now wouldn't bother me at all, really affected me. But, it was something that she said about myself that really cut to the core and made me believe that thing. And for years, I thought, I was never going to understand math. I was never going to be able to pay attention in school because I was labeled ADHD. So the labeling I'm finding is a real problem at the school. And I'm just not seeing eye to eye with many of the even educators in the system. This is what I'm just feeling, we should do this. And they think, no, we have to do that, or we have to medicate. And it's like, I'm just curious where your heart is on this big issue, because I feel like so many people are struggling now with either addiction, trauma, whatever it may be, and some of it stems from this medication that they're given. Would you just touch on that, either the medication or the trauma, wherever you want to go with it? I know it's a lot, but
yeah, that is an absolute lot to unpack. So
yeah.
I guess the first thing that I would say is every single human being on the planet has traumas. Some of them have big traumas, some of them have little traumas, right? We also inherent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so stuffy.
Yeah.
I'm hearing.
This fine.
Thank you. I'm hearing myself not pronounce the words correctly. Mm-hmm. In families, in our ancestry, there's a lot of passed down trauma as well. And then there's the cultural beliefs that came out of trauma. Now, neurodivergent, the term itself was a term created really for the empowerment of those neurodivergent.
Neurodivergent. Okay, I haven't heard of that. Neurodivergent. Okay, thank you. Okay.
That means that their brain processes slightly different than what the standard, general public does. Okay. And those are people with ADHD. Those are people with hyperactivity. A lot of these kids that are neurodivergent are 2E, which is twice exceptional. Have you heard that term?
No.
So 2E kids they usually have more than one divergence, right? So like you've got a hyperactive kid that has, let's say, what is the word? When you
impulsive, or
like you could have that too, but like any two neurodivergence. I was thinking of the one where you see letters flipped.
Oh, dyslexic.
Yeah. Dyslexic, yeah. So like somebody who's dyslexic and has another divergency, they call those twice exceptional, and the majority of the twice exceptional kids have an accelerated intelligence, which is incredible to recognize. So the neurodivergent kids generally, like, the term itself is a term of empowerment. What the system, so that's just in terms of identifying kids in order to support them. Now, what the system has done, the system of schooling, and right alongside of the system of pharmaceuticals have done, they've looked at it as an opportunity, because within the system of schooling, it's about standardizing. It's about getting everybody to the exact same level and teaching scope and sequence. Like the scope is, you must learn this body of work in this order, in this time, and we're going to test you to make sure you've done it this way. And those that are neurodivergent are not processing and learning in the same manner, right? So in order to standardize, they can take those neurodivergent empowerment, in order to help somebody learn, you've got to understand how my brain is functioning, right? And if it's functioning differently than is expected within the standard system, meaning I need to be moving. I am a kinesthetic learner. I need to be moving when I'm learning, because that's what my brain processes the best. Or I need to listen, or I need to visually see, right? To understand what the learning style is from the learner, that's an empowerment thing. But now taking that as a diagnosis to standardize the student or the learner, it's become just part of the system. And you're medicating their originality, you're medicating their uniqueness, you're medicating the thing that makes them light up. They learn that way because that's how they're wired to learn. How amazing is that?
That's beautiful. And is there any way we can change this system within public school? Before I go into homeschooling, I've been in the public school for years, 15 years now, and I've seen so much, and I've had to leave school after school because I just have such a heart for children and teaching, and I love teaching, and I see good people all around me. Teachers have a good heart, but what happens, I see a lot of discouragement, a lot of almost like giving up on the kid, and just like, and it's not on the teacher, it's more like administrative, and it's the whole system of it. Just seems like, okay, for example, tangible, 20 kids in one class and one teacher just is not realistic for humanity. It doesn't make sense. Now, if you were on a nature hike with 20 kids, and you developed a rapport and respect, and you understand each other and you could trust them, that's one thing, because you're outside, you're doing something productive. If you're building a house, Habitat for Humanity, something like that, that's great. But when you're in a classroom, you're so confined. Is there anything we can do as educators to help? I mean, I guess we'll just ask you that first. Have you tried to help out the public schools with these ideas? Or
so my personal sort of take on that is, the system is broken and you can't fix the system.
That's sort of what I thought. Yeah,
a lot of people are doing a lot of work to create alternative systems, and there's a huge movement in alternative education. However, there is an author I totally recommend.
Okay,
great. For anybody who's within the system and wants to make the system work for them. There's an author named Alfie Kohn, and he writes about how the system is failing kids, but how to function within a failing system so that it benefits you. He's got a stack of books. He's incredible. But I like his writing, and I've interviewed him before. I like his work, but I tend to be one of those people that believes, look, the system is not set up to serve children. The system is set up to indoctrinate children, to standardize the learning experience, to crush their natural curiosity, to really pounce on their love of learning. Kids come out of the school system and hate reading books. Like, if a system is creating that as a product, like, you're failing system.
Yeah.
You're failing. So there's all these alternative systems. There's like the Steiner modality. There's democratic schools like Sudbury and Summerhill. There's the agile school systems. There's even project-based schools. There's so many different alternatives. And then right now, as of 2020, tons of micro schools have been popping up with all these different modalities that are parent-led. So that's amazing.
Well, that's a good point too, because who loves the child more than the parent? You know, that's the person who really loves and adores that child is going to want the best for them. So I was wondering if there's something we can do even for this next generation. My push right now is to branch away from the technology, because they got that. They're smart. They can figure out the technology and get them outside more. You know, I run little play groups and things like that after school, and just engage them in nature, and just whatever spirit calls me to do, I'll do kind of in the moment. I'm a very free spirit. So yeah, just looking around at nature, playing games outside, and just if there's a kid that's struggling with something, usually it's some sort of inner angst that they're dealing with. Sometimes they just need a leadership role, right? So then use that child who's struggling to see, oh yeah, you could be a leader. You got a lot of, power in you. So empowering them to be able to assert themselves, because it may be at home or at school they can't. So for now, where I'm at is just like after school programs, like to try to help them, deal with what the situation they're already in. But yeah, eventually, I mean, I have some big dreams here. I want to school. My husband and I want to create an alternative education school, eventually, or an after school program at the least, because these kids are just dying for something. They just want so much more than the schools can offer. And so I would love to see the fruit of that. And to just ask you a question about incorporating spirit into that. How does that work? I know there's separation church and state, there are all different religions and things like that, but for me, I'm more of a mystic. I had an encounter with God. For me, it was Jesus, but I'm very hesitant to even tell people that, because of, you never know what their situation is or what they heard about Jesus, and so because I used to hate Christianity with a passion. And so now I'm just like, well, what do I do now? So with my experience, what I've learned to do is just sort of adapt to wherever I am, just breathe and know that God is with me. So is there anything like that you incorporate, any kind of spiritual aspect to it?
Well, you said one thing earlier on. You said empowerment, right?
Yeah.
That has got to be at the foundation of any educational choice.
Okay.
And the second thing is, if you are, as a family, considering educating in any form of alternative, like outside of school, whether it's homeschooling or alternative, education, it's your job to define what does education mean to you? What is that definition to you? What is important to you as a family? What is your family culture, and where are the values that your family lives? What are those things? Spend the time to define that, and then take a look and see if the educational experience, whether it's public within the public system or not, if that is in alignment to your values. Now, if your values include some sort of spiritual enhancement or empowerment, and that's not happening in the public system, then it's your right as a family to change that.
Yeah.
To really define what's in alignment for you and your family. So
wow.
I'm not going to tell you what to believe. I would not tell anybody. But as a family, define that together. Ask your kids what education means to them.
Yeah. Wow. Because it's similar to what my calling is. We're doing a lot of debunking and sort of what's the word for it? Deconstructing religion, because we have people in our group that came out of a very harsh evangelical background, like with families that were missionaries, and they were told things that were just terrible things about God and who he was. So for me, there's also that aspect somehow incorporated into it. And I feel like part of my job as an educator is to help them unlearn lies that have just been so toxic. This doesn't have to be with religion. It could be with anything, like you were saying, limited beliefs. These things have been embedded into them for so long. It takes time. I'm noticing it really does. They'll get to a certain point and then they'll come back to me and say, well, what about this scripture verse in the Bible? And I'm like, did we not just go over it? No, but it's so beautiful to see the transformation is what I was saying. So if you want to touch on transformations that you've seen, or any testimonials, or.
Well, I mean, transformation, you have to, number one, desire and give consent to wanting to change, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't change another person, but you can facilitate change in others that are engaging in a consensual relationship. So that's at the foundation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then transformation happens every single moment.
This happens.
We gain more awareness about anything. We're transforming our belief system. We're transforming how we're seeing the world. And again, this fantastic tool that we're carrying around above our shoulders in this skull doesn't know what truth is. It has no idea what truth is. All it knows, the brain processes what it believes, right? And if there is a belief in there that is not true, that is not serving the person, you can shift that. You can reprogram your own brain if you look at it as a computer. So
that's a big part of what you do, right?
Well, the work that I do with teens is to provide them with tools so they're not a victim to these beliefs that are bringing them down, that are telling them that they're worthless, that are these beliefs that this thought pattern that they've habitually believed for many, many, many years plays in the background without them even noticing. But the way that they perceive a situation is based on this belief that's sitting there. And once we recognize that this thing is activated, we can acknowledge that it's there and then choose not to respond, but choose not to react to the belief, but to respond in a very thoughtful way or meaningful way for them.
Yeah, beautiful. Wow. So much here, so much depth, to the human mind and body and soul and whatever you want. Oh, it's so good. And we don't have to have the same beliefs, right? I mean, that's another thing too I've been learning is like, you don't have to have the same beliefs as somebody to love them and care for them and, give them the best education. Yeah, it's more about walking the walk, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
About not being a victim.
Right.
Right. Like you just simply don't want to be a victim. How do you empower yourself? And some people empower themselves through scripture, and some do it through positive thought, and some do it through all sorts of other things. And we can walk our own path and not be victim to these hidden beliefs that are there.
Right. That's so powerful for people to hear that, because I think for so long, people, even if you've had like a really great experience, when I first had an encounter experience, I was really kind of freaked out, and I got really caught up in religion for about a year and a half and trying to figure out everything. And it was just like so confusing. So it took some time to really, finally I realized, wait a minute, I'm totally off track here. This is where I'm supposed to be. And it ended up, it's so funny because, just a quick story. I was in a church. It just so happened to be a Methodist church. They were really nice people. I went to every single denomination across the board in my area to try to find the right one. I ended up back in the same church a year later, and it was just so humbling and so reassuring that, God is love. Essentially, that's all that matters, is God is love. Whether or not you believe, whatever you believe, the important thing is that we show that kindness and love to others, and that we don't try to impress our will on them or our belief system on them. For so long, I was thinking, oh, I'll have to, now that this Christian thing is real, Jesus is real, I have to share the gospel. What? and it took a long time. I mean, a year and a half of just like, because I was one that came from a background of addiction, drug, I hated religion. I said I was spiritual because I was into Buddhism, but I just really struggled my whole life, essentially. So I'm 40 now, and I'm just starting to walk this path of really reassurance of who I am, my identity as, in my belief, like, we are made in the image of God. There's no sin consciousness. That's a lie. It's all good. So to just sit in that and rest, really, you don't have to do anything, really.
And it's just powerful because it's an example of you changing your belief system. And it shows that you've got the power to do so, right? You
That's
have
right.
the power to do so. Yeah.
Very good. Oh, where are we at in time? Let me see. Okay. I got a couple more questions. So my daughter and I, let me take a sip of water. I'm getting dry. We're about to garden.
Oh, lovely. So lovely.
We garden. We made a nice garden last year, and I'm super pumped to get the garden up. And I have some people on Facebook, and my neighbors too, that we're going to try to start some kind of community where we can trade, goods and services. And I'm really feeling that that's where things are shifting these days, globally, people that are sort of not just going with the system, people that are, like-minded people that want a change, are going, using different resources, what do you call it? Camaraderie, trade. And we've even been using it in our own little town, which is nice. Like, I go to someone's house and I'm a tutor, so I tutor them, and then they give me food, different things like that. And I was just wondering, in your experience with all the world traveling, what's the currency like? You've been all over. You get currency rates from who knows, of all different countries. You've probably met people all over the world. Do you do that kind of thing in your community where you are? And where are you from? Let's go backwards.
Yeah, I'm originally from California.
Okay. But now you're in Mexico.
But I've been out of the country, out of the US for a little over 12 years.
12 years. Okay. So how's the community life in Mexico where you are? Do you do that kind of stuff, or do you just kind of?
No, it's not like this town. I haven't found it massively, but I'm actively seeking that. Have you heard of freedom cells?
Yes, that's sort of where I was going with it. Freedom cells.
Okay. Yeah. So there are a few people in this area, but I'm thinking of possibly moving to another area that has more of a community feel. And in terms of alternative currencies, these are things that I've played with over the years. there are all sorts of alternative currencies. Like the example of Burning Man, for example. There is no money exchanged. It's all based on gift economy. Then there is all sorts of different communities where it's the exchange is based on barter. Information is an incredible gift to be able to barter with. And I organize family conferences based on the concept that everybody has something to give and learn from each other. So my entire 5 days of conferences are programmed for my audience. So like, I'm big in exploring alternative currencies based on, situations that I can actually facilitate, but it's kind of difficult because we all live off of this fiat currency and buying tickets and food.
Exactly. Well, I'm just starting to get into crypto and learning about it, so that's a start. It just I've been really interested in it lately, and just not for like day trading, like crazy, like blah, 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 blah. But it's really been intriguing to me, and I'm just thinking it's so funny because I was just talking to my friend the other day, and I told her I was looking into crypto. She's like, "Oh, me too," and I talked to another friend, and they were like, "Oh, me too." It's like something in the spirit. What's going on here? So yeah, I think things are moving towards whether it's that or something else, or people are thinking outside the box.
Totally.
So that's good. And did you want to touch on anything before I get into the gardening? I skipped a question. Jeff Berwick. Did you meet him when you were out there?
I didn't know. I didn't meet him.
Oh, okay.
He always had a big group of people around him, and I was like, I'm not going to go be a groupie.
Oh yeah, that's kind of yeah. So yeah, I was just wondering if if there was anyone over there that you would recommend, that people, another takeaway that you got from maybe somebody else that you'd like to share with Freedom Cells guy or someone.
Yeah. So that's what I was going to mention. I was a part of his Greater Reset conference, which happened in January. And my son and I are actually going to present at the one in May. Okay. And I am a huge fan of Derek Bros.
Derek Bros. Yeah, I did watch that you sent me. He wrote that book. Oh, How to Opt Out. Okay. Oh, wow. Democracy. Wow.
And he's also the creator of the Freedom Cells, one of the creators.
Okay. Say his name one more time for us. Yes.
Rose.
Derek. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. I really recommend his work. He is at the conscious, what is it called?
Not sure of that one.
Oh, I have to look it up. Sorry, I don't remember.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Wow, really, really wrapping it up here. A couple more questions. Not too bad, huh?
What else you got for me?
Oh, well, the last question is funny. I'm like, this is my last question? Whoa, this is funny. Do you have any gardening tips or resource suggestions? This was actually one of the kids asked me this. Can you ask her if she has any gardening tips? Because one of the kids in our group is really excited to get going. So I don't know.
Well, I don't have per se
resources, maybe.
I don't have per se gardening tips, but I can tell you a little story. My son was so interested in gardening when we were in Peru. And he started harvesting seeds from all the bell peppers, from the tomatoes.
Oh, wow.
Such an incredible exploration into taking the seeds out of live food, putting them in paper towels and watching them sprout, and then seeing if we could take them from seed into plant. And
wow, I like that.
So many things. We built, like hanging containers out of big water bottles, and we labeled everything. And so for us, it was really an experiment of how we could take the delicious food that we were already eating and source that into a garden. And one of the tips that we learned, which blew me away, was if you take a bundle of lettuce and you cut it at the root, you could stick that back in the water, watch it sprout, and replant that, and the leaves start growing again. So it's like everlasting salad.
Same thing with celery. Celery works like that. It was so weird. We cut off, you know, that little tip you always throw away, the end. If you take that and just put it in water, the little, you'll see the little celery starts to grow, and then supposedly, yeah, you put it in and it'll sprout up if you plant it. But it didn't work. The planting of it, it only got to like this little tiny little bit of celery, but it's still pretty cool.
Right. Yeah. And then you could do experiments and figure out planting conditions, type of soil, type of sunlight, time of year.
Right.
It's about experimentation, and that is being a scientist.
Right. Yeah, you strike me as a scientific woman. Yeah. And you're teaching experimental. I'm sure there was a lot of experimentals going on in your education with your son.
Totally.
Yeah. All right. Well, like, to wrap it up, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your life, what you did with your son, your traveling, all that interesting stuff. At least sum it up for us, and then you could tell us how to contact you and everything like that.
Sure.
So, yeah.
What can I tell you? So in 2008 in California, where I'm from, the economy crashed. And I've been a single parent my son's entire life. And when the economy crashed, I knew that I'd have to close my business. And my son used to always say to me, "Mom, you're always working. You're never spending any time with me." He was right. He was absolutely right. I owned an ad agency. I was working hard as a single parent and the sole provider, and did everything I had to do. He was in school. I never saw him. And when the economy crashed, I was like, you know what? This is sell everything and let's just go on an adventure together. And so we did. And we spent, he was 9 then, just turned 10. And he's about ready to turn 22. So we've been traveling the whole time. And the world became our classroom. We learned that we can live off very little money. I didn't have to work as hard like I did before. I didn't have those expenses. And we had this precious time to do these deep dives into whatever was sparking our interest, like, organic farming or permaculture. For me, archaeology and history, just like lit me up. I loved it. All sorts of different things. So,
did you get an RV and just?
No, we owned nothing.
No.
We took.
How did you travel?
How did you? And we flew. We spent a lot of time in Latin America.
Okay.
My son's fluent in Spanish just because, and he never studied, so he just picked it up.
Just went there.
But we've been all over. We've been to like almost 50 countries. Africa, Asia, Europe, and of course Latin America. So it's been around. And
you and your son do speaking commitments? Do you ever do conferences? Yeah. We get you up here in Connecticut.
We did about 5 years ago. We did a TED Talk together.
Oh wow, it's beautiful. I'll have to look that up.
I'll send you the link if you want it.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to share this with the homeschool community. They're going to love it. This is so good. Yeah. And anything else, you can reach out to me anytime you want. If there's anything coming up, let us know for sure. This has been such a pleasure and an honor, really. I'm so inspired by you and what you do. So I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to talk to us here.
I totally appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. We gotta go, but
awesome.
Bless you and have a good rest of your day.
Take care. Bye.
Yep, you too. Bye-bye.
I am the glab 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 glab. The strawberry glab 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 glab.
That's amazing.
I am the glab 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 glab. The strawberry glab glab glab.
Wow. See, you can do that.
But you can't do it fast as me, Daddy.
Yeah, she does it so fast. Go ahead, Ma.
I can't do it fast.
I am the glab 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 glab. The strawberry glab glab glab. It's a lot of tongue moving.
It
It's
is.
a lot of up and down tongue moving.
Shabba lava loo loo lig log log. How does it go?
I am the glab 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 glab. The
Shrubba lava
strawberry
shrubba lava shrubba shop shop.
No, it's like this. How do you say it slow just once?
Okay.
Gabba glob glow gab galab. The schwabble double wabble gabble flibber blabber blab. I'm full of schwibble glibber kind. I am the yeast of thoughts and minds. Oh, ha ha ha. Splendid. Oh, ha ha ha. Splendid. Simply delicious.